public. This is a screenshot of my notes up. Anti-trans organizations promote a rally right outside the arena inspired by Sophie Cunningham's comments. Do you believe that trans women belong in women's sports? Like, no player should ever be asked that question. Unpopular opinion, it is not cool to ask any player that question. Why? Because we know what asking that question does to the player.
Look at that reaction. That's not just disagreement. That's someone who's watched this exact playbook destroy athletes before and is calling it out in real time. Because what we're witnessing here isn't journalism, it's weaponization. And the target? Caitlin Clark. Again, this isn't about trans rights. This isn't about social justice. This is about a credentialed media member admitting publicly that she planned to ambush a player with a question designed to create controversy, not coverage. And when the Indiana Fever saw it coming and protected their rookie, that same reporter went online to complain about access being denied. The audacity is stunning, but the pattern, that's what we need to talk about.
There is no right answer a player can give. If Caitlin Clark is asked that question, it turns the media shitstorm 100 times worse. It is as simple as that. There is no right answer for this question that Caitlin Clark can give that would appease good old Roberta. Because I don't know what Caitlin Clark's opinion on this is. Neither do you. There is no answer she can give that does not make her life worse.
Here's the reality check that needs to be said out loud. When you ask an athlete a politically charged question that has nothing to do with their performance, their team, or their sport, you're not doing journalism. You're creating content for yourself at their expense. And this commentator nails it. There is literally no answer Caitlin Clark could give to that question that doesn't make her life worse. If she says trans women belong in women's sports, she loses half her fan base and becomes a target for conservative media. If she says they don't, she gets labeled a bigot and becomes a target for progressive media. If she says no comment, she gets accused of cowardice and avoiding important issues. It's a trap, a deliberate, calculated trap. And the person setting it knew exactly what she was doing because she announced her intentions on social media before the game even started.
Pretty bad. And of course, yeah, Damiris Dant has given her information about joining the Fever. That's not forgotten either. Like that's not forgotten. And also, this is a person who has referred to Caitlin Clark as a white teenage boy. Let's never forget that. Caitlin Clark's stance on this is irrelevant to anything. If Caitlin Clark says that she believes trans women belong in women's sports, it's not going to change the fact that the Olympics ruled against it.
Now let's talk about the context that makes this even worse. This isn't some random reporter with a one-off bad question. This is Roberta Boccabella, who has a documented history with Caitlin Clark that goes way beyond professional skepticism. In April 2024, Boccabella published an article referring to Caitlin Clark as a white teenage boy. Not her game, not her stats, not her impact on the sport. Her race and a demeaning comparison designed to diminish her as a person. That article is still online, that comparison is still out there. And now this same person wants access to ask Caitlin about a protest with 20 people outside the arena? The Fever knew exactly who was in that press room. They knew what was coming, and they made the correct decision to protect their player from someone who has proven she's not there to cover basketball.
Sophie Cunningham weren't made available. Why would Sophie Cunningham be made available? She scored 0 points in the last 3 quarters of this game. She had 0 points in the last 3 quarters. I said this, they were almost certainly makes. I don't know if they knew about Roberta specifically. That's why I said almost certainly. But let's be real, they all know she is. When you wrote an article and called Caitlin Clark a white teenage boy, while still having credentials, they know who you are. I said they were almost certainly made available because you specifically would ignore the game that just happened, demanded they answer for 20 people, nothing outside them, and that they had nothing to do outside the arena. And by the way, this was before she announced the question. 5:29 a.m. my time.
This is the part that gets lost in all the discourse about player safety and important conversations. The Olympics already ruled on this. FIBA already has policies. The WNBA already has guidelines. Caitlin Clark's personal opinion on trans athletes changes exactly nothing about any of those decisions. So what's the point of the question? It's not to inform the public. It's not to advance the conversation. It's to create a viral moment. It's to generate headlines. It's to put a 22-year-old rookie in an impossible position so that whatever she says can be used as content. And when you strip away all the justifications about important issues and players using their platform, what you're left with is pretty simple. A media member admitting she planned to ignore the game that just happened to demand a player answer for the actions of 20 protesters the player has never met, never spoken to, and has no connection with whatsoever. That's not holding anyone accountable. That's creating controversy where none exists.
And like, she's in the middle of asking a question, and you can see Kelsey Mitchell just put her hands in her head. Like, before it goes to the PR person, Kelsey Mitchell just has her hand in her head. And I think it was a Steph White, or who was, someone on the table was like, can you ask a basketball question? Does anyone have any basketball questions? And like, it's very clear. It's very clear. Like, I don't know. I have never seen Roberta write a word about basketball. I don't know if she even knows the rules of basketball. And I'm not saying she doesn't. But based on everything I've seen from Roberta, I cannot confirm nor deny she knows the rules of basketball. That she even has that baseline knowledge of basketball.
Here's where the old guard WNBA media problem becomes impossible to ignore. For years before the Caitlin Clark boom, a small group of credentialed reporters covered the league not because they loved basketball, but because it was their community, their club, their space. And that was fine when the league had minimal mainstream attention. But now millions of people are watching who actually want to hear about basketball. Pick and roll defense, offensive schemes, playoff rotations, player development, the actual sport. But scroll through some of these legacy reporters' timelines and try to find basketball analysis. Try to find film breakdown. Try to find tactical discussion. It's not there. What you find instead is culture war content, social justice commentary, and endless discourse about everything except the game being played on the court. And look, there's nothing wrong with reporters having other interests. But when you have credentials to cover a basketball league, and you consistently use that access to talk about everything except basketball, at some point people are going to question whether you actually know the sport you're credentialed to cover.
Sport of basketball. And it's a problem. It is a problem because, again, everything is Fever fans bad. These 20 people standing outside the arena were such a massive negative, but the people inside the arena spitting on Fever fans there's no issue with them. You know, they're spitting in retaliation. Retaliation for what? You know, you're wrong for existing, Fever fans. You're wrong for existing. Like, it's as simple as that. Like, it's pathetic.
The Fever fans are the convenient scapegoat in all of this. Every incident gets blamed on the new audience. 20 protesters outside? Fever fans' fault. Toxic online discourse? Fever fans' fault. Media members facing criticism? Must be those awful Fever fans. But here's what doesn't get mentioned. Phoenix Mercury fans were caught on video spitting on Indiana fans at a game in June 2024. Actual physical assault. And the response from some of these same media members? Justifications. Well, the Fever fans probably provoked them. You don't know what was said first. Both sides need to calm down. Contrast that with the coverage of 20 people holding signs outside an arena. Suddenly that's a crisis. That's dangerous. That's something Caitlin Clark needs to personally address and denounce. 20 people with signs get more media outrage than actual fans getting spit on. The double standard isn't subtle, it's blatant, and it reveals what this is really about, protecting the old guard's control over the narrative, while painting the new audience as the problem.
Basketball. And the problem is now is that it's looking like the WNBA as a league are going to take credentials off basically all these people. It's looking like they're going to do that. But caught in the crossfire are people that love the sport. You've got Quita, who lost her credentials for All-Star Weekend, who clearly loves the sport of basketball. You've got the three at no cap space who are doing a really good job, who lost their credentials, and they're being caught in the crossfire of this shit. Unfortunately, there were a lot of people that prior to the boom did a really good job covering the league. A really good job covering the league. The problem is that they are...
Now we need to talk about what's happening behind the scenes because the WNBA is facing a credentialing crisis that's about to get messy. Multiple independent media members lost their credentials for the 2024 playoffs and All-Star Weekend. People like Quita, who clearly loves the sport. People like the No-Cap Space Crew, who do detailed film breakdown and tactical analysis. They got caught in the crossfire when the league decided to crack down on credential abuse. And yes, that crackdown was necessary. Yes, there were media members who were using access inappropriately. But the problem is that the league is using a sledgehammer when they need a scalpel. Good reporters who actually cover basketball are losing access, while some of the people who consistently ignore the game to push culture war content still have their credentials. That's not sustainable. That's not fair, and it's creating resentment among the exact people the league should want covering them. Passionate, knowledgeable basketball analysts who want to grow the sport.
I need to make sure that basketball is never the story, because once basketball is the story, someone else is going to take my job. Someone else is going to take my job, and like, I could be wrong. I don't know this person. I'm just making absolute assumptions here, and based on evidence, I have no idea. This is all my opinion. At the end of the day, this is a basketball league, and I do not remember in however many years Roberta saying anything that can confirm to me that she even knows the rules of basketball. Like,
here's what makes this entire situation so frustrating and why it matters beyond just one press conference in Seattle. The WNBA is experiencing unprecedented growth, ratings are up across the board, attendance is breaking records, merchandise sales are exploding, expansion is coming. This should be a celebration, but instead we're talking about whether a rookie should be forced to answer questions about protesters she's never met from a reporter who previously called her a white teenage boy. We're talking about media members announcing their ambush questions on social media before games. We're talking about credential wars and access battles, and everything except the incredible basketball being played. And the reason we're talking about all of this is because a segment of the legacy WNBA media cannot accept that the league's growth is happening in a way they don't control. They can't accept that millions of new fans showed up for a player they spent months trying to diminish. They can't accept that the club is now a mainstream sports league with mainstream scrutiny. So instead of adapting, instead of covering basketball, instead of riding this wave of attention to bigger platforms and better opportunities, some of them are doubling down on the exact behavior that's getting them criticized. They're announcing their controversial questions in advance. They're playing victim when teams protect their players. They're blaming the new fans for every problem while ignoring their own role in creating the toxic environment they claim to oppose. The Fever organization made the right call in Seattle. They saw the tweet, they knew what was coming, they protected their player from a bad faith question from someone with a documented history of hostility toward that player. That's not censorship. That's not avoiding important conversations. That's basic player protection. And if that means Roberta Boccabella doesn't get her viral moment, good. Because Caitlin Clark doesn't owe her an answer. Sophie Cunningham doesn't owe her an answer. No player owes any reporter an answer to a question designed solely to create controversy. The WNBA has real issues to cover. Revenue sharing negotiations, expansion city decisions, playoff format debates, charter flight funding, CBA negotiations coming in 2025. There's so much actual basketball business that deserves attention and analysis, but we can't get to those conversations when credentialed media members are using their access to set traps for players instead of covering the sport. We can't build a healthy media ecosystem when reporters announce their ambush questions on social media like it's something to be proud of. The league needs to make some hard decisions about credentials going forward. Not everyone who wants access deserves access. Not everyone with a history of covering the WNBA should automatically keep their credentials if they're not actually covering basketball anymore, and not every controversy deserves to be amplified just because someone with a press pass decided to create it. This moment in Seattle could be a turning point. The Fever drew a line. They said, no, you don't get to use our player as content for your culture war. Other teams are watching, other players are watching, and if the league is smart, they're watching too. Because at the end of the day, the WNBA's growth depends on people wanting to watch basketball, and the more the conversation gets hijacked by manufactured controversies and bad faith questions, the harder it becomes to keep casual fans engaged. The hardcore fans will stick around, but the millions of new viewers who showed up for Caitlin Clark, they came for basketball, and if all they see is drama and controversy and culture war content, they'll leave. So here's the question that actually matters. Is the WNBA going to protect its players and prioritize basketball coverage, or is it going to let a small segment of legacy media continue to use credential access to push non-basketball agendas? Because you can't have both. You can't grow a mainstream sports league while allowing credentialed reporters to treat press conferences like opportunities for political gotcha moments. The Fever made their choice. They chose their player over a reporter's viral moment. Now it's the league's turn to decide what kind of media environment they want to foster going forward. Let me know what you think happens next, because this fight over credentials and access is just getting started.